Okay.
No.
I'd like to call the commissioner-led discussion, Ramsey County Board Modernization Project meeting to order. I'm really excited to be here. Now, the introductory comments are by Tony Carter, so maybe we'll not do that. But I guess I would like to, well, first of all, we should go around and introduce everybody. So, Nicole?
Commissioner Nicole Frethem, District 1.
Mary Jo McGuire, Commissioner, District 2.
Brian O'Connor, County Manager.
Karen Francois, Deputy County Manager, Information and Public Records.
Rich Christensen, Chief Information Officer.
Krista Mattis Castillo, District 3.
Victoria Reinhardt, Commissioner, District 7.
Rafael Ortega, District 5.
Darren Tobolt, Commissioner Reinhardt's office.
Melissa Jamrock, Commissioner McGuire's office. Sheena Denny, Commissioner Fretham's office.
George Hargrove, Controller for the Economic Growth and the Investment Service Team.
Jan Guthrie, County Manager's office.
Okay. I would like to, Karen was wonderful enough to give me some comments and really the framework for the commissioner, for this commissioner-led discussion. Because I don't know about you, but I had questions about, okay, modernization, what does that mean? Are you getting new computers? You know, I mean, now I knew it wasn't that, but I still, I wanted to get a little bit of a framework for how this is going to roll out. And so she provided me this. I don't know, have others gotten this as well?
They're attached to the packets that you have now that are over here with the agenda.
Okay.
Does everybody have one?
No. I don't think so.
Is mine in my office?
No, I have it.
Oh, okay.
It's just
okay.
Madam Chair, the first half of the information was a part of the strategic planning day originally.
Okay.
The part of the modernization construct part of the discussion today was the follow-up that the chair asked us to prepare for today's discussion session.
So, you know, as far as what we are hoping to get out of this, obviously, is a review of the charter, administrative code, board actions related to the county board, especially related to the organizational realignment that we have been going through, not only this year with the restructuring of the committees, but also with all of the reorganization that's taken place into the service teams. Hoping to, they will be interviewing commissioners to gain perspective and insight about the role of the county board. And I'm not sure if role of the county board is the correct way to put it, because we are the ones that are responsible for what happens in the county, but I think it's more about how does it align with the service teams. So I think we know our role as the county board, but how it fits with, how do we move things through? How do we get what we think is needed for the residents first to come forward? So I think the wording of that one probably could be a little bit different, but regardless, the idea is that we are working with commissioners and commissioners' offices so that we can make sure we work efficiently and well together. Evaluating the staff functions within the county board office and make sure they're aligned with the work of the commissioners. Some of that has already taken place with the lead administrative staff, and the person in that role right now is Debbie Orth, but really trying to make sure that we can advance the work of the organization. And how do we do that in a structured way and having people that are held accountable? Identify and address issues that may arise as a result of the modernization work, because whenever there's change of any kind, there's always something that there's a hiccup that you go, huh, never thought about that one. And then making recommendations as necessary. So there will be really kind of updating, but also making, I believe, well, there will be changes that will happen as a result of what we are doing as a county and how the county board not only reviews but sets the table for how all of this works together, especially through our chair. So there are a number of, to do this in order to, we need to answer the following questions, and there are a number of them, and I think we've already kind of gone through those as far as what we expect to come out of the modernization program. And then I believe that you will be going through the modernization construct as well. So I think kind of just getting an idea of what this is about, what it means to our whole organization. We have been doing a great job in making sure that we get things in line for the residents' first vision. And now we need to really look more inward as far as how can we make sure that we are, that we're fulfilling our duties as elected officials and making sure that we're in line with what we're asking others to do as well. That's probably a simple way to put it, but that's what we need to do. Commissioner Carter, did you want to make some introductory comments, because I kind of punted here?
You know what, I think you've done an excellent job.
Okay.
And I just really appreciate it. Late to the meeting because there was someone there to talk about our
Carol Levin.
our process this morning on naming. So I'm fine to just follow and fill in as we go along in this discussion. I don't know if I missed an introduction that Karen has already made, or if you were going through that.
We did do the introductions.
But not,
Or did you?
but
Not-
not an
Yeah.
overview as such.
No, you know what? I just skipped right over that side of those three people there. So why don't we do that, and then move right in. So Ryan, why don't you introduce yourself first?
Madam Chair, Ryan O'Connor, County Manager.
Oh,
And Karen Francois, Deputy County Manager, Information and Public Records. And actually, you just made my job very easy, because those were actually my introductory remarks.
Oh, I thought you gave them to me.
No, I wanted you to know exactly what was going to happen here today. But thank you, I appreciate that very much.
All right.
Because now what we're going to do, and what Rich didn't say, is that he is also the acting director of our Enterprise Project Management Office. And through the Project Management Office is where we get the staff resources and support to do our modernization efforts. So if you don't mind, at this point, Rich is going to talk with us about the modernization construct, to give you a little bit better idea of what happens in a modernization process.
Should we introduce the rest of the people in the room?
I think we already went around
Oh,
and
did
did
we?
it.
I thought, okay, when we missed some people,
Well, Matt came in.
Just Matt Hill.
Oh.
That's Matt Hill, everyone.
So my fault that I was late. My apologies.
If you don't know someone in the room, we'd be happy to introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
Just two germinating ways this came forward today as we go to Rich and go forward, commissioners. One is, as we've onboarded 2 new commissioners within the past 16 or 18 months, I don't remember the date exactly for that. One of the questions that's come up a few times is like, where is some of this written down that is being done through the modernization process? And part of the answer is it's not really in an easy spot right now. And so it's come to the forefront, and actually through the onboarding of 2 new commissioners, this has kind of come up in different ways at different points along the way. Second part was, this is originally was part of the strategic planning day, was where it was going to be talked about, but because we went longer on some other parts, it got punted to a discussion session today instead. I just wanted to ground you on how it came to be today.
Yeah, and then just the board modernization initiative is going to be done to help us to ensure that there is board and organizational alignment, organizational structure alignment, and also, like the county manager said, we want this process and the outcomes of board modernization to be documented so that it takes us well into the future, and make sure that there is continued board and organizational structure alignment.
So
Madam
thank
Chair, Madam Chair, Commissioners, I've been involved with a lot of modernization efforts over time, and kind of built out a structure that's fairly simple and straightforward in a way to go about it that really provides a holistic approach to looking at where we're at, where we want to be, and then what does it take to make that transition, right? So that's the idea of a modernization effort in general, and it's a flexible model. Sometimes it's more about process or documentation or culture or systems or technology, right? Modernization itself says whatever of those things, whatever that blend is that gets us to the outcome we need is what we'll do, right? So it doesn't presuppose it's going to be more about one thing or another. That gets learned in the process, okay? So that's the macro picture. So it starts out defining the characteristics of modern, and we'll do that as part of the activities. There'll be working sessions as part of the interviews, things that you mentioned in the mix there. And often there's benchmarking, external community engagement, and then the internal aspect, and we scale those things to fit the need of the engagement, right? So that's the idea on that level, okay? So then we go down to define the future state. It's in the context of the broader organization as just described here, and the community served, defining what good looks like, what are the measures of success, right? So putting a little bit of framework about that. So I'm just kind of walking through what's in the material here at a high level. And then we create what's called a blueprint, which is kind of this enduring view of how things are going to be and what the guiding principles and all are. And in our case here, the charter might be the blueprint, right? And then that kind of sets the framework, and then we work on the roadmap underneath that says what is the prioritized path to make the changes we want to make, so that we're sure that we have a method to get there, and we know that maybe there's cultural things that are prereqs to process things, or vice versa. We have the ability then in the roadmap to say what is the prioritized path to move forward, okay? And we build out that roadmap, and then look at the scale and the scope of it, and what kind of effort and resource, whatever's required to get there, and align on that to say, yep, here's the things we're going to do, and we're committing to get it done, and the resources that we're going to put to that to make it happen, because we may need project management resources to help drive something, or maybe we need organizational change management resources, potentially some rapid process improvement things that your staff might say, hey, we could really improve the way things are done, and we bring in some facilitated models, right? There's Lean, Sigma, you may hear these terms, Kaizen activities that are about making rapid change that that the staff itself is a part of to make happen, or yourselves are a part of, right? So there's a variety of tools that are brought to bear to help flesh things out and get to a very specific set of deliverables. And then you go into implementation mode, and we're looking at a timeline of this without having gone very deep yet, of something that would start here at the beginning of March and run until the beginning of December. That general time frame. We're assuming some project management engagement through our enterprise project management office to help structure this and move forward, and then we may use, like I said, some process improvement resources, other things along the way, but that's the overall flow. And then at the end of it, we really have to operationalize, right? A modernization program isn't about the design of it. It's about all the way through to where it's institutionalized in the way we do our work. Racial equity aspects are built in, embedded into the modern methods, and it kind of comes alive. It's not just to get us there, but make it something that we can sustainably operate in the new model. Okay, and of course, community participation along the way, and then how does community participation manifest over time. All right, so that's the general framework.
Commissioner Steve.
So I just have a question on the building enrollment roadmap and assessing, like when the charter really compared to where we're going. And so if it's identified that we need to make adjustments, or it's recommended that the charter changes, what's the process there? Because we obviously don't set the charter, and that's another organization. So would the project manager go to the charter commission? Like, how does that work?
Well, actually, the Charter Commission is, just so there's kind of a framework for that.
Yeah.
The Charter Commission is appointed by the judiciary.
Right.
And they make recommendations on changes to the charter. If there isn't agreement with the county board,
Okay.
then it goes on the ballot. If they make a recommendation that we say, hey, that's a really good idea,
Yeah.
then it can just be complete
So we're
through the
at-
Charter Commission.
Okay.
So in this case, we would be going to the Charter Commission
I see.
and presenting, that would be my assumption, that we would go to the Charter Commission and say, we've gone through this process, we would give them the reasons, and to ask them if that is acceptable to them. I believe it would work the opposite
Got
in that way as well. So that the only time it has to go to the voters is if there is disagreement. Or not
Thank you.
acceptance.
And-
Not necessarily disagreement,
Yeah.
but wanting it to go to
Yeah.
the voters.
And on that point, Madam Chair, when you say we go to them, we as a board
County.
actually don't really connect with the Charter Commission. We don't really have meetings. I mean, are you saying our staff goes to the board, or we? I'm just curious what that looks like, because we don't really have a connection with the Charter Commission,
Well,
right? I mean, we don't.
We do, yeah. I mean,
In how?
There
Just
are,
curious.
I mean, there have been times that county commissioners have gone, the county manager has gone to their meetings if requested. The chief clerk to the county board was always at the meetings and part of that process. We can get more information about the
Yeah, I was
actual
just
structure of
curious.
it.
I'm
but
just curious when we
we
would
do.
go there, because I've always been under the assumption that we're two separate entities.
Oh, we are.
And so, but we don't,
Well, we interact with other entities just as well.
and I'm just curious what that looks like
And
with
sometimes,
the Charter
and
Commission.
I do remember that the Charter Commission asked for a county board member to come for, when they were going through some amendments that they were considering.
I was just curious
So-
what that looks for. I'm clearer on other
Yeah.
boards that we're on, how we connect, but I'm just not clear on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
So-
actually through the county manager's office is how those meetings are actually held and put together, but the appointment process is through the judiciary. So,
And I thought
but there is a
was-
way for us to get on their agenda without
So
any issues.
maybe we, I don't know, Madam Chair, so is there a time when we maybe get some more information on it,
Yes.
or do a little workshop on the Charter Commission?
Oh, that's a good-
What our roles are, what their role is, what our role is. I feel like that would be helpful.
Madam Chair,
In the meantime, though, I think we should
Yeah,
get
yeah,
more
honestly, yeah.
information on it.
Just, the practice is that the chief judge usually consults with the board regarding the appointments of that board, okay? Just as a consultation. And the other is that it should reflect all our districts.
Yes.
So there is, while it's separate, there is interaction between the two.
I'm just curious what they do at their meetings and what they talk about.
It is interesting, and I've been to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
meetings, so.
Be
We'll
good
get
to
more
get some
information kind of
information
on the
about that.
general part of
Yeah.
what is the Charter Commission, how do things flow between the two.
Yeah.
And we'll, from, as a result of this meeting, we'll get that information out so that you've at least got the basics, and then we can come back and determine whether or not we want to have a workshop on it. Does that make sense?
I just,
Commissioner Escostito.
I love how you've laid this out, that's really helpful, and, we have the project manager, interviewing commissioners. I would just add that our staff, because we address our changing staff, but our aides also, have some input, for that interview process.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's part of this as
Okay,
well.
okay, just making sure.
Okay, one thing that, and I know that it basically it goes both ways, but I do think that, I forgot what the words were, and maybe if it's in here or not, but again, the direction of this county and the organizational change, that all started with the board and working with the county manager and making sure that we move things forward. And I want to make sure that it's understood that this isn't about making the board fit with the organization. It's about the organization fitting with the board in a modern way. And to have something that is memorialized so that it's very clear what those roles are. And sometimes when you're reading through things, it would appear that it would be the opposite way, but it really isn't. So board modernization means how does the lead of the county board fit, or what do we need to change really to make sure that there is that total connection? And that's what modernization means to me, is that total connection. Commissioner Carter.
I really appreciate that. As I read through it, coming into the discussion here, I just want to make sure that as we look at the questions that we're asking, it is about the fit and the alignment. As Commissioner Reinhardt just said, that all things are aligned. The board sets the direction, and accordingly, we have made many changes in the organization over the past few years. So our effort is to ensure that our work, and the work of the county are connected and aligned as best possible. I understand that. I also want to make sure that as we look at improvements, or to eliminate inconsistency in the questions that we're answering inside this document, that we're also talking about efficiencies and, effectiveness of the work that we're doing. So alignment, yes, as we think about our operation, how can the operation be smoother? As we think about the responsibilities and the communication of work, how can that flow be better? This is multifaceted. It's not just about systems, or I should say, information systems. It's about systems, all of the work that we do together. So I think it's a substantial amount of work, and I really appreciate the opportunity to use the kind of processes here that we've used as we've made changes to all of the work. The time frame from March 2nd to December 1st, I know involves the steps that you've talked about, including the interviews and evaluation. Will we engage with this work not only as individuals, but also in a series of workshop/discussion opportunities here? And does this time frame take into account that individual work and the joint work that we need to do?
So my comment, Madam Chair, Commissioners, is that there would definitely be interactive sessions along the way, working sessions, individual, on a regular basis throughout this. So there would be time commitment at a group level, individual level, at the commissioner level, at the aide level, others, throughout the county as well. So yes, there would definitely be those activities that would, within this time frame, we'd have to account for.
So we would have additional commissioner-led discussions. I think we would need to have that, as at least a check-in. So that's one of the process.
Yes.
And the launch then, if I might, go ahead. The launch of whatever changes come out of this process would foreseeably be the 1st of January 2021. There could be processes that build out the changes that are needed.
Well, Madam Chair, Commissioners, I actually don't, how you end up wanting to, part of it's the process you go through along the way as an ongoing discussion together. How and what those changes might look like beyond is a little less clear for this project than some of the others, but it's a tool. It's a tool you'll have available. It's a tool going forward, and so that would be when you would have it available to think about that. But.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense.
Well, and I do think one of the things that we have embarked upon is the transforming systems together. And I view this as a major part of that, because we need to know, we have this vision, well, we've got our mission, vision, and goals, and how that actually gets implemented and how the leadership of the board really defines how that's going to be rolled out. Because we know that work of transforming systems together is one that's going to take a while. But we need to be, I view this as us being really intimately involved with that process that the rest of our county is going through as well. But we as leaders need to understand how that is, how it is transforming how we do our work. Because that's the role that we have, that is ours as the elected board. Did you, was there any part of this, you're going to roll this out on March 2nd. So we're having our update today. Is there what do you need from us today to make sure that March 2nd you're ready to roll? Because that's, literally 2 weeks from now, so.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I think what we are going to ask of you today is that those folks who are responsible for scheduling for you are aware that we will be in touch with them, and that if you would, please make this a priority, so within, within your ability to, so that we can get these individual interviews scheduled, so that we can get any type of focus groups that might be needed scheduled. We'd like to get them all scheduled as quickly as possible, because that's really going to drive how we get to December 1st. So that's what I would ask of you today. Our next step, of course, is to engage a project manager, which we've already started looking at that. We have some ideas about that right now. So, yeah, I think just having your schedulers available and, making this a priority.
I have a question. Go ahead. Just because I don't know when else to bring this up, but just, and I don't know if it's part of this modernization process, but I just want to get it on the table since we're all together and it's not anything that I think a number of us are hearing about. But it is our selection process of our boards and commissions, and I know that there's two different things. There's our Citizen Advisory Council, but then there's our boards and commissions. And just like in the last 2 weeks, our watershed, appointees has come to me in several ways, in several different watersheds. And, we really don't interview them. They have levy authority. We say, okay, here's the only ones we get, and then we appoint them. And we don't always get the balance that we may need in geography, in diversity of our community. And so I'm really wanting us to do something about this, and I don't know where that fits, but I hope it's part of our modernization work, because these are really important deals. And so it's how we appoint these really important members of our board, but also, how do we recruit them? How do we let those communities know? Now I've had people say to me, it was really hard to find how I even apply for that. And so I just heard from members of our community in the past few weeks about this. So I know that I've talked to the county manager about this, and I know that there's like 2 different discussions. It's, citizen advisory councils, which are wanting to continue their work the way they are, and that's all great, and they're all good. But then it's these other boards and commissions that we appoint to. So.
Well, and
Just
I
want
do
to
know
get that
that
out there.
we did get an email from Janet Guthrie a week ago about, because that is a major project that they have been working on, and that kind of gave us an overview of what was happening with it. There weren't recommendations in that I remember.
Madam Chair, the top line would be, we moved away from the idea of trying to consolidate or streamline the groups because of pushback from individual groups and just feeling like that was a tough spot to start. We're moving forward on the idea of a one-stop source of recruitment and a website where all that information is available. So much of what Commissioner McGuire just mentioned is already a part of the next step of that process. And so we're trying to make it easier for commissioners to be able to, have that information out there, but there's a part, so that's kind of where it's at.
Okay, so get more coming on that. I should also point out, though, that I have interviewed people for watershed districts. We do it with the library because we've just always done it, and we recognize how important that board is. But it's just as important on these other boards.
That's what I'm thinking.
And especially when we're looking at diversity and community engagement. There is no reason that we can't interview.
Yeah. Especially,
in fact, that's one of the questions on the application. Are you willing to be interviewed? So that may be something that we want to consider.
And then
Raphael,
you can go around, but I am.
No, I'm just reacting to Mary Jo. She just made me think of something. We all try hard to fill these appointed positions, not just in general, big picture.
Exactly. Right.
And sometimes it's hard to recruit in certain communities, and we tried, and we have this goal here of equity and diversity, etc. And we're doing this, but it's the programming that makes the difference. you're not gonna get a Latino to come and sit on a Parks and Rec if all the activities are about ice skating.
That's right.
That's not gonna
Good
work.
point.
So I'm just trying, because you
Yeah.
just made me think of that. I mean,
And that's the
could we
point.
interview folks? Yes, so I go and
Yeah.
I beat the drums and I get one or two people to apply, and then by the 2 years later, the term is up and they say that adios, we're done.
I agree. Well, then, I know.
Okay.
I know, Nicole, yes, I mean, I agree that that's an issue, is how are these boards operating, and I appreciate county manager saying we're gonna have a one-stop where people can go. People still have to go there, they have to know about it. I feel like there needs to be a broader outreach to communities to say, here's how you can change the Parks and Rec, here's how you can be there and be a voice there. And it's great to interview people, we're gonna be interviewing people from our own areas, and of course, we're gonna wanna support them, but then who's looking at the geographic balance? Like on our watershed district, we have 2 people, neighbors on the same lake in a watershed area, and they are good, but they're 2 people on the same lake. And so where is our geographic balance? So, I mean, I think they're gonna be appointed because nobody else knows about coming up for that, and so, yeah, and
I don't know which one are you talking about?
yeah, it's the next watershed appointments we have. Ramsey, Washington. So those 2 are gonna be reappointed because nobody else, is going for it. And our cities, there's the other thing, our cities are allowed to recommend people, and they're absolutely gonna recommend people in their cities. So it's another parochial kind of thing, and I don't say we shouldn't ask for our cities' recommendations, but we have to recognize that that is what cities are going to do. And we should make these more regional decisions, which is why we are the ones making them, so.
Well,
Just wanna make
okay.
that.
And you know what, I do
Right.
think that's outside of
Yeah.
this, but good to bring it up, and
Right.
we will make sure that,
Right.
because Janet is working on this and how we can do a better job, but I do think that, I mean, they send us things, we try to recruit, we do different things, and.
I don't know how I guess I'd like to know how we improve.
I'll let Janet follow up with
Yeah.
some
Okay.
specifics.
Well, I know I do, so, Commissioner Breathen, and then Commissioner Carr.
I think to
Yeah.
some extent addressing Mary Jo's concerns and just
Yeah.
in general, the idea of documentation
Mhm.
of what we're doing is really important, and I think not just from a
Right.
practical matter that, it would have been nice to have something to reference, it would still be nice to have something to reference.
Yes,
But
absolutely, true.
but also in the act of documentation, it helps us identify, like, we don't really have a process for this, how do we do this?
Right.
And it also helps us examine things that have become ingrained as ways we do things, that are choices we've made, and maybe we haven't consciously made those choices, to help us re-examine those. So I'm really looking forward to that piece, because I think that can be very transformational in the work that we do.
Well said.
And, not to elongate this, but I just have to give credit to some very conscientious efforts that have been happening around helping. As you have said, Commissioner Reinhardt, all of this, our board modernization is in context of the entire county modernization work that has been happening. And as we think about transforming systems together, in particular, that's a part of the process, reaching out to discover where those input, or I should say pipeline opportunities are for us, such as those organizations who are now doing community engagement work with us and helping us to attract the attention of those that we want to better be able to serve, finding areas where there are boards and commissions training and being able to engage with those kinds of things. So I think we look forward to this not being such a lonely responsibility that we may have, to recruit and find people who are willing to come to the table and stay, although the conversation doesn't necessarily change. And the conversation that we're having with Burns Institute this afternoon, in fact, is a part of that. How do we change systems which tend to perpetuate themselves and produce the kinds of results that, we've seen historically? So this is an opportunity, every one of these discussions, for us to dive deeper and deeper, and they're not disconnected from each other at all. So
Well,
the
and I
boards,
And I do think that Raphael's comment also, you can get people on the
Yeah.
boards and commissions. But if you don't have something that is tangible for them to do, then it's a meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And that's
we
what
have
we like to
times
look
for
at,
meetings
right, I
that
mean,
they
that's why
don't
we have people get.
really have
Yeah.
input or substantial
So if I
things to
just-
do.
Becomes a chicken and egg
Just
question.
Yes.
While we're talking about this, I don't want to prolong this if we're going to have a workshop on it or something, but I just heard from someone from Ramsey, from the Capital Region Watershed at Alice and John's town hall meeting on Saturday. She came up to me, she goes, I was on the watershed board and I didn't even know it, but someone else replaced me, I didn't even know it was happening.
That's not true.
Okay, so it's not
That's
true,
not true.
okay.
Let that go.
Yeah, okay, well, she came up to me.
Yeah.
And she was like, I didn't know, and.
We don't appoint people who physically assaulted or elected.
Oh, okay,
I know
well,
who that is.
so, yeah, anyway, I just think if there's a process that we know of where we let people know, and maybe you already did let her know.
And you know what we do.
And you did a
And I
great job
do-
of letting your people know that they weren't gonna be appointed on
Yes.
camera.
But we can't do it, we can't, so there's a process in that, and because I checked with Janet, we can't do it until the vote comes, and then we can contact them.
And then we can contact them.
We can't contact them ahead of time.
You-
Like
We
as
can't
what's
say that someone
pre-selected
else is
before the
being
vote, Because
appointed.
we all vote on it.
Yeah, right.
No,
Oh,
we
okay.
can't,
We're
because
not
the
putting
vote
your
doesn't
name
happen
forward,
until the
yeah.
vote happens, and then we
Right.
can contact.
Physically, yes, very true. Okay, we're going to
Well, we're gonna have
have,
this
that is,
discussion. Yeah.
obviously a discussion that we need to have.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I've gotten, and I keep looking at that clock, and I
know,
don't want to
it's
Either
really
way, we
bad.
gotta wrap up.
Yes,
I
we do. But, the things that we need to come back, are, we want to have, some sort of a memo, or just, what are the basic things with the Charter Commission, and how do we interact with them? So if we have something that comes out of this, I don't know if you were in the room when we were talking about. Okay, but that we need to know, okay, how do we take something to the Charter Commission? We know how they get something to us, but we would like to know if there is something there, how would we do that? And we may, after getting that information, we may want to have more discussion about that, but to begin with, we at least need that basic information. So we're going to have at least one, if not more, check-in, commissioner-led discussions about this as we're moving forward. And also just looking at this as, and we'll also have, and I think it is a separate workshop, and I know that and there's a lot of work that's been going on about it, around it, but it ties into what we're doing for modernization. So I'm not sure how to do that, but clearly it's a bigger discussion. And we need to have something that is in writing that shows us how this is what happens. But I think probably the most important thing we can do is when we're looking at these different committees and boards, commissions, is to have a very clear understanding of what is expected of people that are on it. It's hard to recruit because ultimately we recruit through social media and different things, but a lot of this comes down to the commissioners recruiting. And we need to have something that really tells them what is it that you're going to do, why is this important, and that you're going to be valued when you are there. And if we can't say that, there's nothing we're going to be able to do to improve recruitment. So I do think that that's a part of that discussion, but I think we have to have a separate one. Okay, I'm seeing nods from the chair and from the county manager. And then finally, I really want to make sure that the commissioner's assistants are included, as you pointed out, but I want to reinforce that. And I do have to tell you, I mean, we all have different ways that we use our assistants, and that is their title. I'm not even sure. I think it may be principal, assistant, aide, whatever. I have to tell you, I call Darren what he really does for me, and he's my policy director. Because assistant sounds like they're helping you, put your files in order or something. And I mean, it's not a real description of what we expect from the people in those positions. So,
I agree.
it doesn't have to, I mean, what I use and that's how I use Darren, he's my policy director.
Mine is my chief of staff.
Okay.
Mine's my pet millennial. I'm kidding, I'm totally kidding.
Okay.
Oh,
But
wow.
I think,
Yeah, but I think it's
I think it's part of this
Yeah.
transformation.
Yeah.
They all pick up their phones.
Case in
And
point.
the modernization is, within this board office,
Right.
we kind of have this culture, and it's been here, since I was here in the 80s, as far as how we interact and the title of aide is used within the office. And I think we need to really,
Yeah, I agree.
we need to look at all of it. And that's why I think it's so important that you brought that up.
Yeah.
That they be part of this discussion because, boy, I mean, talked about forward-facing or public-facing and all of the things that come to the office. Yeah, if they're in the, we may even know it, if we're in the blind, then we're
Yeah.
really in trouble, but
Yeah.
they need to be in that loop, and I think that's part of what will come out of this.
Yeah.
So, transforming systems together, that's what this is about, how we do it within the county board office, and how we lead this organization so that they are following what our vision, mission, and goals are in this organizational structure, which is something that we have put into place.
Yeah, I thank you for bringing that up. It occurs to me that, as you said, the description of the job and the work of our principal assistants is so different today
Yes.
than it would have been when that work happened to describe it. And information is a very big part of, what we have so much more access today than ever before. And I find that, I know in my office, Matt and I find that he processes information and is able then to construct from that gathering of information and knowledge, real work that helps to advance my office's work. And even though we know we may use our principal assistants very, very differently, there's a connection that we have to describe, office to office and our office to the administration, that we have not been attentive to. So as we get into the processing of this work, interviewing those aides and understanding the work that they do and can do on our behalf and see the opportunities is going to be very important.
Well, and I can give you a case in point, and that is with the gun range. It was Darren that did all of the research on the noise suppression, noise suppressors, and took it to the city of St. Paul. And they were, to say they were resistant to begin with is putting it mildly. And the St. Paul, I shouldn't say that, the city of St. Paul versus the St. Paul Police Department. But it was that research that we were able to provide that went, oh, we should look into this because of the bigger issues. So, anyway, so thank you for bringing that up, and didn't mean to dominate this conversation with that, but at the same time, it's really critical when you talk about modernization of this office.
Absolutely.
They are a huge part of that. That's right. Okay, is there anything else that you need from us?
We're good.
Okay, looking forward to kicking this off.
All right.
Thank you.
This is what we did without me.
That's that second